As I was introduced, thank you very much. I'm Zak Wiegand. I'm the Processing Program Technical Specialist at Oregon Tilth. That title is a mouthful, and I like to consider that my label for this this panel. And the truth is I'm actually just a food manufacturing geek, and really what I do is policy development and compliance as it pertains to food manufacturing facilities, restaurants, retail stores, and things like that within the regulations in the National Organic Program. So I figured, I'd kind of just cover the organic labeling stuff because that's its own monster in itself, and food labeling in general is a pretty big monster. I recall when the dried prunes were rebranded and they got packaged by Sunkist in a pretty little package, and it kind of reminded me of the Pizza Hut rebranding of their product. Feeding you garbage for a while, and we just changed it, sorry. It's not garbage. Prunes are great. Don't get me wrong. For you. Yeah, exactly. Only comparison there. But anyways, everybody pretty familiar with the big round symbol that's split in half and it has little green fields in the bottom. Pretty recognizable, right? It's actually one of the most recognizable organic logos in the world, and that's there's a lot behind that. And I don't know that everybody's super familiar with what it takes to become certified organic. And I figure I'll run through that real quick so you have a general understanding of what's required to use that logo, because you can't just use it willy-nilly and put it on anything you want. Certification in general is a pretty tough task. There's a lot of work, money, expenses, paperwork that goes into that process. As a point of clarification, the way the certification works, the USDA Organic Program does not do any certification itself. It is exclusively done by third-party accredited certifiers. Oregon Tilth is one of those. And we're actually not just in Oregon, surprise. We certify something like 1,500 operations globally. Everything about 50-50 farm to food manufacturing and retail facilities. So we're all over the place, and we do a little bit of everything. Essentially, what it really takes to become certified, it's generally coined a 5-step process. I'll kind of simplify it. 5 steps are kind of silly, but an operation has to apply for certification. That includes turning in a very large, depending on the operation, an application that explains all their processes, how they manage everything, and record keeping, pest control, things like that. It's pretty comprehensive. And from there, they'll be reviewed against the standard by somebody, a certifier, and they'll determine whether or not they can move to an inspection. And these operations must be certified and inspected annually. So we've actually got inspectors that show up on site every year, reviewing records and checking fields and checking food processing facilities, logs, records, labels, formulas, and things like that. And then from there, there's actually a separate person that actually reviews the inspection report, and the decision is made separate from an inspector whether or not somebody complies with the regulations or if there's any compliance issues. So all in all, there's quite a bit of weight behind that label, and you have to do a lot of work before you can use it. And it's in high demand, and some people don't necessarily know what they're getting into when they want to use it. So I guess some information that folks out there, you guys might need to know. The labeling specifics about organic regulations are actually fairly simple. They're codified in the federal standard. I like to say that marketing gurus take something very simple, be creative, and make it very difficult. And a big part of organic certification is these reviews of label claims and correct usage of the logo. There's very specific requirements. So we spend a lot of time reviewing labels and telling people, no, you can't make that claim. It's not truthful from that perspective as a certifier, as we're required to. The other big aspect about that is we are accredited by the federal government, the USDA, because the Agricultural Marketing Service administers the National Organic Program. Certifiers are held to a very high standard and can actually receive non-compliances themselves to correct compliance issues and things like that and make sure that certifiers are doing their jobs correctly. And kind of the big thing about that is, like a lot of these other label claims that can be made, there's not a whole lot of federal regulatory backing, and definitely not a a supportive group like the National Organic Program that's there to do compliance and enforcement, levy fines on people that don't do it right, and things like that. Another important thing about the National Organic Program is that the overall program and the regulations are incredibly transparent compared to a lot of the other labeling requirements, such as FDA and other USDA labeling. But how that works is there's a federal advisory board committee that meets twice a year around the country, and it's open for public comment, where the public can come in and express their concerns. They can request changes and request changes to the rules, the labeling, allowed substances, and things like that that are present in the requirements. I guess kind of the big take-home in terms of the truth in labeling is really you've got that USDA organic logo, and there's a lot of weight behind that. People can't use it willy-nilly, and if they do, there are fines and things that can be levied through the federal government or by certifiers. And if you're out there looking at labels and you want to know if something's actually certified organic, basically anytime the word organic is used on a label, they'd have to be certified. Mandatory information, if you're really concerned about it, on the back label, information panel as it's called, you can see where the address of the manufacturer, which is it's required on any label by the FDA, but NOP builds on that. Right under that must be certified organic by and the name of the certifier. So you'll know exactly who reviewed that label, who certified it, and you can always reach out to a certifier if you have questions about products. And the other great thing about the NOP is they have a very effective reporting structure for complaints. So if you see a label, you see a product that you don't believe is organic, you can always complain to the NOP and they will investigate. So in terms of these types of labels, the USDA Organic Program has quite a bit of backing and support, and it's extremely active within the community. Everybody out there, if you're interested, you can participate, and there's plenty of resources out there. Oregon Tilth, we just updated our website like 2 days ago, I think, so it's shiny, and it's tilth.org. There's a lot of information generally on there. And if you want to see what some of the requirements for labels in general, if you make a specific claim, there's a laundry list of things you have to do or comply with or meet size requirements and things like that. So, and that's all available on our website to anybody.